Hey, I'm TJ Castning with Ambassador Group. I'm here with Kim Leifson, owner of Hiring Strategies, and we're here to tell you about the Profile PXT, a Wiley product, and how it's going to help you hire more accurately and with more information about people. In a way, it's tough to get this kind of information in an interview process. So Kim, could you explain to us what PXT is?
Yeah, absolutely, TJ. Thanks. Really what the PXT does is it helps you, I like the way you describe it, TJ, is see around the corners, right? Helps you see around the corners, or I like to describe it as it helps you see what's below the waterline on the iceberg. All those things that you're not going to get from a resume or an application, all of those reasons why someone leaves your organization. Most people leave organizations for one of three reasons. They either don't fit the job, they don't fit the manager, or they don't fit the team. It has nothing to do with what's on a resume or what's on an application 99.9% of the time. It's the behavior. It's how we interact. It's how I choose to show up in a specific situation or while doing a certain task. And so we want to get at those things early. We want to understand those things before you bring them into your organization, and give you an opportunity to probe, to ask really good interview questions. The tool is going to give you those interview questions, so you don't have to create them. It's going to give you coaching tips. It's going to tell you what you're going to have to do. If you decide to hire this individual, what are you going to have to do to manage them? And it can give you a whole lot more too. It can talk to you about team building. It can talk to you about leadership. How is this person going to do in a leadership role? It can talk to you about conflict resolution. How are we different, and how do we need to work together? It can tell you about the relationship between the manager and the employee, and what, if we're different, what are the potential areas of conflict that we could have so that we can address those ahead of time. It's really about understanding how we're going to need to manage this individual proactively, rather than getting them in the chair and realizing, oh man, we have to do some things that we didn't realize we were going to have to do. So it's to give you that heads up, really. That's what it's designed for. And to assess your risk, right? Be able to look at candidates side by side and say, which candidate's going to present me with the least amount of risk, and which candidate am I as a leader going to be, in an organization, going to be better at managing. That's really what it's designed to do.
So Kim, what things does it evaluate in order to do that? How does it develop this kind of insight for a hiring authority?
Yeah, it assesses an individual in three areas. Thinking style, which is about how quickly do I process information, how well do I communicate with others. It also measures behavioral traits. So how am I going to do the job? What's it going to look like when I'm doing those duties and responsibilities? And also, what are my passions? What motivates me? What excites me? So that we can understand if someone's got to get uncomfortable and get outside of who they really are, do they want to do that? And also, by understanding those passions, it's going to help us understand how to motivate this individual moving forward. So it's an assessment that will take you about 45 minutes to complete. The candidate's going to take it. If we can get the hiring manager and their team, the person this person's going to be working with, to take it as well, then we can look at that team fit, that overall fit in the organization, not just can the person do the job. Usually you can understand that from the application and the resume. This goes way beyond that.
Why do you think it's so valuable to have the person's boss and maybe the team they're going to be working with to take the assessment as well?
Because we know, what we understand, what there's lots of research on, is that people don't leave jobs, they leave people. They leave managers, they leave teams that they don't fit in. And so we need to understand, how is the team wired? How is the hiring manager wired? So that we can compare the candidates to the team, to the manager, and understand what are the potential areas of conflict for everybody.
Do you ever go in and support this process and see no potential areas of conflict?
Not typically. There's typically one or two, right? Not everybody's going to be a good fit all the time. And in fact, I tell people all the time, there's never going to be a job that, just like there's never going to be a job that fits anyone 100% of the time, there's never going to be an employee that's going to fit you 100% of the time. It's understanding, again, those risk areas for each candidate so that you know, what am I going to have to navigate? Looking at that iceberg below the waterline to understand, can I navigate this? Do I maybe need to look around to the left a little bit? I see something over there that I want to explore and I want to probe, or maybe it's around the back. Maybe I need to go check that out. We're not going to give you the topographical map, but we are going to give you those things that you can explore further to understand which candidate's going to present me with the least amount of risk so that I can then make a decision that's going to be best for me as a hiring manager, best for my team, and best for the organization. And best for the candidate, frankly.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll get to that, especially the best for the candidate part. Can you real quick go through the 9 dimensions of the personality that this evaluates and maybe give a few examples you've seen of where results have warranted a little bit of caution to a hiring authority? Not necessarily that the candidate is a bad hire, but where the candidate will require specific investment, or the hiring authority should be aware that the person's going to show up differently to the job than how the manager would necessarily show up to the job.
So there's really 3 sections that we measure. It's that thinking style, which is that cognitive piece. How quickly do we process information? The second area that we measure is behavioral traits. And then the third is that passions piece. Inside the behavioral traits, there are actually 9 things that we're measuring. We're measuring pace, which is how many things do I like to have going on at one time? Assertiveness, which is the need to be heard. Sociability, which is your typical introversion extroversion scale. Conformity, which is, do I need rule, structure, and process, or do I prefer to operate without rule, structure, and process? Outlook, which is, am I trusting and positive, or am I more skeptical and see the glass as half empty most of the time? Decisiveness, which is really about our propensity for risk in our decision making. Do I tend to make quick decisions and not worry about the risk, or am I more a risk averse individual? Accommodation, which is the need to please others. So on one side of accommodation, we have those that will please others at all costs to themselves and those around them. And then we have on the opposite end, people who are more focused on the goal. I don't care how it makes people feel. We are making this happen. We also measure independence, which is more about the work than it is about the people. So do I prefer to do the work by myself, or do I prefer to do the work on a team? And then the last but not least is judgment. And that is, how do I make my decisions? On the far right-hand side of judgment, we have those who make their decisions based on facts and data only. And on the far left, we have those who make their decisions based on gut and intuition. So how do those play out in the workplace? I'll give you an example. Would be someone who works for a boss who's on the far right-hand side of PACE, which is really about how many things do I like to juggle? How many things do I like to have going on at one point? People on that far right-hand side can take multiple things coming at them. They can jump from one project to the next. They can get interrupted, and they'll go back right to where they were working without missing a beat. People on the left-hand side of PACE are more focused. They want to only have 1 or 2 things going on at one time. They are very keen to attention to detail. They're going to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So imagine if you have a hiring manager who's on the far right-hand side, who enjoys multiple things going on at once. They're constantly adding new projects to the team, which keeps the business going, right? That's their job. That is a positive in their work. But then you have someone who on the team really likes to focus and pay attention to detail. So to that boss, that individual may not work quickly enough. it may be frustrating because they're focused on the details and the boss is focused on doing multiple things at once. They can't be focused on the details. So they're constantly pushing that individual to take on more. But by taking on more, that individual is dropping the ball in the details area. So it allows us to have the conversation about, okay, my job is detail. So I need you to only give me 2 or 3 things at once if that's really what you want me to focus on. If you don't want me to focus on detail, then we probably need to find someone who's further on the right-hand side of PACE. Does that capture what you were asking me to capture, TJ?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also notice, using PACE as an example, sometimes it can be helpful for setting realistic expectations about just how flexible people's personalities can be. It's not unusual to find a job really, in some sense, benefiting from somebody who can go really fast and have a high attention to detail. But the reality of humanity, all of us, is that we all exist somewhere on that spectrum in our comfort zone, and it's unwise to build teams or workflows that require people to operate outside of their comfort zone. And so not only is this helpful, let's say for the leader who is a great multitasker and probably not that great at attention to detail on every little thing, if they're really being honest, for setting expectations and understanding where might this person fit into the workflow and how can I adjust my leadership style to be most effective, with this individual. And like Kim said, there's 9 of these dimensions, and as a leader gets familiar with this assessment as an interviewing heuristic, it can really help the interviewing conversation be very high resolution about how to make the company most successful and the individual most successful given the company's needs and the individual's personality.
Absolutely. I think it's important to remember that everybody has the ability to stretch, right? If you score towards, let's say, the right-hand side of PACE, where you are that fast-paced, multiple projects going on at once individual, that doesn't mean that those individuals can't slow down and focus on attention to detail. It's just not their comfort zone. So it's not their initial go-to, right? It's where they're going to land if you just let them be who they are at their best, most natural self. So what we want to understand is as we're interviewing, what this allows you to do, that part about seeing around the corners, is to go with this particular candidate. I really need to ask some questions about PACE because I need this person to pay attention to detail, but also to be able to handle multiple projects. So how many can they handle at one time? I need to go focus on that. But maybe with another candidate, it's not about PACE at all. Maybe it's about having the ability to speak up and share what's on their mind and come up with new ideas and share those ideas. And if that's the case, then maybe I need to focus on that with this particular individual because they fall to the left-hand side of assertiveness. So with each candidate, it's going to be different. I think that's the beauty of this tool, is that it allows you with each candidate to know exactly where you need to spend your time interviewing and reference checking.
Yeah, it's been powerful for us. We've used it for about 5 years now. And there's one other element I wanted to highlight, Kim, which is what's that process look like if you've got a candidate who takes this assessment? We've got a client, a hiring authority who's also taken the assessment and for a particular position. What does your involvement after that assessment has been taken? What's your involvement look like to support both parties, and how does that provide an advantage to the process?
Great question. So I am a resource for both sides. I'm a resource for the candidate. If they would like me to give them feedback on their results, I'm happy to do that. We typically don't do it with candidates until we get down to that last final candidate. We're ready to make this person an offer. Then we want to use this data to better understand, or to help them understand, here's where we're going to ask you to stretch, right? Here's how we are as an organization are going to support you in that stretching. Here's how we're going to coach you. So that they understand going in, is this really a position that they want, knowing that they have to stretch and that you're going to coach them on that. Maybe they've had to stretch in that area before and they don't want to do it again. That's good to know before you commit to taking on a role. So I'm a resource to help on the candidate side, but more importantly, to help on the employer side, to help you look at your team, to say, what sort of behaviors do we need on our team? What candidate is going to bring us those sorts of behaviors? And to help you assess what is the fit to the manager, what is the fit to the team. I've been using this tool since 1997. So I have lots of experience looking at thousands and thousands of these, and I can tell you what sort of behaviors you're going to see eventually, right? There's always that honeymoon stage where everybody's putting on their best and showing up to work. And then about a year to 2 years later, the real them starts to emerge. We want to show you what that real them is going to look like. And with my years of experience in using this tool, you have access to that. Use that.
It really is an asset to be able to see around the corner, so to speak. And, oftentimes candidates and interviewers feel a degree of pressure to look good in an interview, which can be a bit of an adversary for the level of transparency and vulnerability that really begets good relationships. And this assessment process has been a really valuable tool to support that kind of transparency and help both parties go into the relationship with informed commitment, having seen around the corners and given good disclosure about themselves, their goals, and maybe what kind of challenges both parties would need to overcome to make the relationship successful. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, TJ. Have a good one.
You too.